Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Beside Ourselves podcast, a podcast for around business AI adoption. We collectively are Beside Partners, a team of technologists that guides SMEs through AI adoption and its implications. My name's Giles. I'm a fractional CIO based in Cambridge in the UK. And then joining me, we have got Theo, who's a CEO and technology consultant based in Germany, and Rutger, who is a fractional CMO based in the Netherlands. Morning, gents, or actually afternoon, isn't it? Sorry, it's not for me.
Afternoons.
Anyway.
Great to be back. Great to be back. Episode 5.
Indeed. So, as usual, same as before, as we have the last few ones, we're going to keep the conversation to just 20 minutes. I am going to get I probably should have done this before we started, get my stopwatch up. This week, the topic's been chosen by Theo, and it's all around what will be the first AI killer app for business. So a lot to discuss there, I think. Again, we'll see if we can fit it in. So the clock starts now, and I'll leave it to you, Theo, to introduce the subject. Away we go.
All right. Thank you. So for this week, I wanted to pick something very, very targeted, very practical, drive conversations on projects. And it is exactly that. What would be the first place to look for a killer app? That piece of technique, software, way of working that's going to make it really ubiquitous for business to adopt AI. Individuals, so whether as consumers, as professionals, we have all enthusiastically embraced AI, haven't we? We use chatbots to generate text, to ask questions about health, right? For shopping, we use chatbots to kind of create images, all these things in our professional lives, in our personal lives. But that killer app, that kind of generative AI aspect, but how that translates to business, that's still missing. So I wonder, what would be the first use case, that killer app for businesses that's just going to make adoption just everyone's discussion point?
Right. Good question. Rutger, I'll let you go first if you want to, because I've already spoken.
Yeah, I think an important thing that I would like to address to that is the way of looking at how we do our work in a more generic way. I think in the past we were more focused on, and I still have this type of mindset. It's very hard to change it. Actually, is into how to say it, addressing new revenue or working more efficiently. So basically on the savings side of things. And I think a lot of how to say it, previous apps have been focused on how to improve that in terms of address savings, some efficiency, or in fact create new business. And I think in the past it was more about how we do our jobs in terms of different tasks, and they have been automated, so it's more efficient and focused on those type of activities. I think with AI, it's more about replacing the whole function almost, because it will be executed for you as well. And I think that is a particular shift that I think we face now with the AI landscape coming up. And I think that shift is really, moving into the direction of new opportunities in terms of these type of AI killer apps that Theo is referring to.
Mm. Yeah,
I'm going to push back a little bit.
Come on, Theo.
This one,
I'll
actually.
give a challenge. Go for it.
Yeah. Yield the floor to a challenge. Yeah. Now I'm going to push back that it's there's going to be on revenue. I think that we're going to see the most ubiquitous uses for AI in business in the most boring fields. I thought revenue, because Rutger is a marketeer, right? So he's out there with the exciting stuff. Let's make revenue solves everything, as they say. But I think that the killer apps are going to come from the boring aspects. And in my personal agenda, in my expectation is compliance, as repetitive as it gets, and the area where most businesses will see benefits, product development, because we're missing the trick of what else have we tried in the 25 years of products that we have of making products? What can we learn from our own experience, from our own memory, right? And the third one is energy. We talked about it 2 or 3 episodes ago when we talked about AI and energy. And I think that that handprint we were saying, how will AI help us save energy? I think that that's going to be the third one. And I think that all businesses, because we're all energy consumers, will be impacted by that. So yes to all the sexy revenue stuff, but I think the killer app might actually be from the boring bits. What do you think, Giles?
Oh, well, I would agree with that, but at the risk of now disagree, another podcast to listen to, they say disagree agreeably. I think they talk about it as a politics podcast. But the point I was going to, 2 points I was going to put out is one, the premise of the question assumes that there will be a killer app. And the question is, will it just be one? And the other thing is, will it actually appear in that kind of not lightning bolt moment, but will it actually be here? Because if you look at the things that have come previously, which now are ubiquitous to business and are almost indispensable, things like CRM technologies, e-commerce, those sort of things, cloud computing, they built up over time. They went from being novelty, sort of new ways of doing existing things, either like the cloud computing, moving from prem to in the cloud. Obviously with e-commerce, it was moving from the physically going down the street and ordering stuff and actually doing it online. It happens slowly over time. So I guess my challenge to the premise is, when we say a killer app, it'll just kind of evolve naturally. And the other flip side to that is the question is it already here and we just don't realize it? So like, is it already there being used? So I'd say, like, for instance, one thing I would put out, like one thing I know that's transformed what I do is just the note-taking stuff. You know, and now I can be in meetings and I can be present and have conversations because I can rely on the AI agent or the voice recognition tool in the background to not only take really good notes, but actually be able to structure them and allow me then to interact with that. And that for me has transformed the way I work as a consultant, has transformed the way I work as a business leader, a team leader, because you're not having to go back for your notebooks and stuff. It's all there. So yeah, there's 2 different points there. One is actually, will it actually be a killer app? And actually, when it comes, will we even notice it? And actually, is it already here and we just can't see it because actually we're looking for something shiny and new, I guess. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that really triggers me, Giles, because I like that part about thinking it from an aspect of like being a revolution. Is there like a new thing showing up that we currently don't really recognize, or is it like coming from this type of like direction, or is it like evolving? And I think there are a lot of tools, also in marketing, but I think in any department that is almost like evolving in this AI direction. There are many tools around that, integrate with AI, self-made AI workflows, or even like agent type of functionality. And I think those tools have some sort of like legacy, because I think a lot of people, let's take an example as like Salesforce or HubSpot, and they have a certain brand, they have a certain perception. Let's put it like that. So I think this perception will also kick in if this evolves into like this kind of like, killer app, so to say. It will be like very interesting to see that. And I think it's very hard to predict where this potential will come from, and this killer app, so to say.
I'm going to go back a little bit to answer to Giles, because I wouldn't say I have a strong opinion about that, but the next thing to a strong opinion. First thing is that I don't think we have a killer app, and the fact that AI adoption for business, not for us individually as professionals, but as a business wide tool, that is lagging. That is definitely not proceeding at the pace that we were expecting. It's going more slowly than we were expecting. So I don't think that we have seen it just yet. But I am, however, really glad that you mentioned e-commerce and cloud and CRM and all these things. And I think that we're forgetting that before these things became killer apps, they were really boring. Commerce, before Amazon came in the late 90s, was really boring.
Yeah, you had to
and
go
then
shopping.
e-commerce came, exactly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we stuck an E in front of it. And we now had conversion rate optimizations and basket abandonments, and we made a science out of it. Whole cloud computing was hosting, was infrastructure before that. And then we made it cloud. CRM, of course, before Salesforce was also backwaters of corporate IT. All these things, yeah. A killer app emerged. They gave it a great snazzy name, and then everybody had to have it. And this is the bit that I'm talking about. And I wonder, could it be that in a year from now we're going to be looking at some kind of compliance software, something that does fraud detection at scale, and it makes it really easy for everyone, and for every company to do KYC, know your customer, for the customers, for the clients, and we just say, "Oh my God, how did we not see this? That this is a big game changer." And of course, it will have a big sexy name or whatever, but it could just be some kind of backwater of corporate IT that we're just gonna go and kind of make it a killer.
Yeah, well, I think
With
the other
jazz
thing on all
hands.
that, yeah, jazz hands, killer app. But I think the interesting thing with all those is that what fundamentally flipped them from being novelty, not novelty things, but things that weren't the mainstream, was that kind of network effect. I think it was that tipping point at which businesses, individuals could see that actually by not doing that, you know, they were being punished, they were being left behind. You know, the Blockbuster's the classic example that didn't see that, obviously no longer exists as a business because actually it just assumed that its way of working would work. But actually, when these things like cloud computing and that sort of stuff went from being something you considered to actually being your default option, it was that kind of network effect where unless you had very good reasons, it was the obvious choice. And I guess and again, this is maybe a question for both of you in terms of if we look at those previous killer apps or whatever you want to call them, what did they all have in common, I guess? And it is about, and this is the point you made, Rutger, it's about, efficiency, reducing costs and all those kind of things. They all kind of have similar. Well, I don't know what your thoughts are. Are there common elements we can identify from those that we can then maybe project forward and think, well, actually, would that make it a little easier for us to see where AI in particular could become the killer app?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, but I think there is something before that. Actually, I think I also get triggered by the fact like the word killer app sounds like it's solving something. So on what level does it support? So I think on a company level, it's very hard to compare. It's really on department level. You would make to say that like people's lives easier in sales with Salesforce, perhaps, but it will also depend on the stage of your company whatsoever. So what type of processes are in place? And so I think it's very hard to have like only one killer app in place, and on a company level that doesn't exist. So if you're very much rely as a company on compliance, for example, yeah, of course you would see a lot of benefit in getting like this killer app in compliance. I think that needs to be tackled up front on your question, Giles, so to say. Yeah, that's
But in the danger of disagreeing with Rutger too much today. I'm sorry, Rutger. I don't know why today. It's because I like the killer. It's a killer aspect. No, I'll go back to what Giles said and what is common about these use cases. And I think it's because the original business killer apps enable businesses to do things that they didn't think that they would be able to do before, like control cloud computing and this kind of complicated environments, like sell online, have another channel, like manage customer relationships and scale out their sales team. The software came and enabled them to do things that they couldn't do before. And that answers Rutger's point, which is right now, businesses find it very hard to kind of meet compliance and regulatory requirements. KYC is one example, but a lot of businesses actually have regulatory requirements. If the software, the compliance software arrived that made it really easy and sexy to deal, I don't know about sexy, but to deal with compliance, then maybe more businesses would choose to become regulated. They would be more friendly with compliance. Same thing with product development. At the moment, I think that most companies, when they evolve the products, they kind of take some feedback from the market and from the team internally, and then they proceed with the next iteration, if it is software or whatever it is. If the app was in place that you could go back and ask an AI agent, a product design agent, given my history, 10, 20 years of accumulated organizational memory. Give me 20 ideas, brainstorm with me. What else should I be doing with product development? That is something that businesses cannot do now, but they might be able to do in the future. That could be the defining aspect of a killer app. Wherever you look at it, it's just about new capabilities, I suppose.
So another interesting question for you, another thought I had was, rather than it being a killer app, could it be an entirely new business model that we haven't yet thought of? And this is a big question, like an AI native business model. So could we see a whole, in the same way we talked about e-commerce, before e-commerce, it was, a physical thing you did in terms of going to a shop or maybe ordering on a telephone or something. And then we were all suddenly shopping online, and now that's going to work. So will a whole new way of operating as businesses, will new businesses appear that never existed before because of AI? I guess what is the AI equivalent? I don't know, of Uber, Airbnb and stuff like that. Could it be that?
Almost inevitably, huh? It's kind of like it's an AI native company will come with not e-commerce, but AI commerce, and they're going to become a household name, and they go together, right? The killer app is going to come with that company that that produces that software. Possibly. I mean, history doesn't repeat itself, but it usually rhymes, as they say. So I expect something similar in this way.
Yeah, there's echoes down the timeline, isn't there? Sorry, Rick, Toby.
No, more like on a very high level, to be honest. But I think it's also like to what level people or companies are aware of the capabilities in that sense. It's all about like how knowledgeable and how much do you understand about these type of like developments. And I think this is further down the line because it's very hard to predict where AI is going in general. Of course, like directions that we can take, but it's also like to predict it and then also to step into it with this type of like perspective as a company is kind of like a very, I would say like how to address that, like a very visionary mindset, I would say, to facilitate. Yeah.
Cool. So at the risk of making it a predictions podcast, and I know we sort of started the general premise at the outset, which was like, what do we think that the killer app is? Why don't we each maybe just try and put a pin in the tail of the donkey and go actually where we feel it's going to be, just so we can embarrass ourselves in 5 years' time by playing this episode back and seeing how wildly wrong we were. I'm just thinking that might be worth doing. I'm happy to go first if you want to, or unless anybody else has got something, because I realise I'm just throwing away. So I think for me, and based upon everything I've just said, I don't think in terms of an app, I don't necessarily think it's going to be an app, but I think when we look back at it, what we'll see is AI is something that is basically making us better versions of ourselves, I guess, in a business context, so we'll look back and all those things that we used to do that were mundane and boring, voice processing, our expenses, taking notes in meetings and things like that, will have disappeared. And what we will have, it will allow us to then be better versions of ourselves. So I think rather than being a killer app, it will just be a different way of working, and we'll all be sitting here, either grayer and older men, going, "Can you remember that time when we used to have to do this and that, and we all carried around notebooks and we all wrote up meeting notes and stuff like those sort of things." So I think, that's where I see it will come in. It's about enabling us to be better versions of ourselves, which is a very touchy-feely way of answer, I know. But anyway, go on. Who wants to go next? Theo, I'm going to choose you because you're next to me on the screen.
I think Rutger was about to.
Go on. Sorry.
What I always get triggered by your answers from both of you actually. But this is, I think it's more about like this self-learning aspect of AI. And that is related to like the intent, the context, taking the context into account, being predictive, and driving this, how to say it, like almost like self-sufficient. So I think this will shift the way we look at work in a more even like holistic way. I think in that sense it aligns a little bit with your point, Giles. I think over time we will have a completely different approach on how we consider work, how it fits in our lives. because many things are going to change. And I find it very hard to predict that. Even like I'm very cautious about that. But I honestly believe that with an outlook of even like within 3 to 5 years, we have a completely different, not all of our roles. I mean, they're very like physical roles and all of that, but especially the knowledge-based roles or the task-driven roles will be very much being affected. And I think the way we look at our work will shift, and how this benefit will be translated into our daily lives is something I'm very curious about. And I'm I'm very curious what will happen next, so to say.
Cool. Theo?
I'm going to widen the camera lens a little bit, to zoom out a bit more, and just say I expect that the nature of a corporation, of what makes a business, will evolve, will change with AI. John Kay, who's a British economist, wrote a book a couple of years ago when he was describing the hollow corporation. This notion that companies now are a lot lighter on capital and on people, and they outsource all the services and the software that they need, allowing them to focus on what gives them competitive advantage. And software. Whoop,
Keep going.
I'm awake now.
That was quite loud, wasn't it? Sorry.
Very good. I was saying that the software was what enabled businesses to do so. And I think that AI is going to turbocharge this. And I think that you're going to have corporations and companies that are even lighter in substance and much, much more focused on the one thing that they do well, outsourcing everything else to these services, to AIs. So I think that you're going to have, most people are going to start working for specialists. Most companies are going to hyper specialize, and even trends like the what's called now they're expecting the first unicorn with a single employee to emerge in the next couple of years. That is the kind of like the natural progression of that example, taken it to the extreme, perhaps. But yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I think that you're going to see more entrepreneurship, specialization, and smaller companies, much more focused, outsourcing lots more of their surrounding activities.
Perfect. Now, as we all heard, and apologies again, even I wasn't expecting to be that loud. That's our 20 minutes up. We normally do a round and do closing remarks, but it feels like we've kind of already done that. But I will give you gents both an option. If there's anything else you think we've missed or you want to chuck in, I think feel free.
Yeah, definitely. I have like a last remark, because I get again triggered by our conversation, which is amazing. I think it's more about, and it triggers a new question actually that we might drop as like a topic in the next podcast. But it's about like, what if tooling shifts towards like execution, and what will happen with that? And I think and what will it do with how we look at our work? I think one thing is clear to me: it's more about like orchestrating things rather than executing things. Well, of course, there are limitations to that, how AI can facilitate, but in general, there will be a huge impact there. But I got really triggered about like, how would that look like? So yeah, I'm going to take some time to think about that.
Cool. Thanks, Roger. Theo?
Yeah, I'm going to close off with the reason why I picked the subject, which wasn't just to be to discuss something practical, but it was also for this, was to shift the focus from the technology to the applications. It's time to spend less attention on the AI labs and the LLMs and the technology that's in them, the hyperscalers, the technology that enables of this, and more time thinking about what it can do for us. So far, the AI labs, because of the levels of investment that have attracted, they are hogging the spotlight. And it's time to let that one go and focus more on what the technology can do for us.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. And I think I'll just to maybe extend the point we previously discussed earlier, which was, we can almost look for clues, like we were talking about echoes down the timeline. We can look for clues in the past that may help us understand what's coming. And I think if you look at what made those applications stick in the past, then it's going to be similar things that are going to be future. So as I said, it's going to be that network effect of people realizing that, we have to adopt this, we're going to get left behind. It's going to be a clear return on investment that you can measure so that finance teams and stuff can model it and understand it. Individuals within businesses who take ownership of it and are responsible for it, I think that's going to be another thing. And I do generally believe that it's going to be a gradual adoption part. It's going to be a transition from where we are today to being an AI enabled world, for one of a sort of buzzy name, but and we're on that journey at the moment. And at some point these things will come to the fore and they'll just become the norm. But yeah, no, brilliant discussion as always.
Yeah.
And really, really enjoy that. And I guess we've got loads more we could talk about. Just to close out, to say thank you for you both for joining us, and thank you for those that are listening or watching or wherever you're consuming it. We should say, as we said before, the three of us are beside partners. We enjoy doing this podcast, but equally, if you want to have a chat with us one-to-one or as a collective, we're more than happy to do so. We came together because we think there's a real opportunity out there in the business world for AI, but there is a right way of adopting it. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty about how to adopt it. And we believe that with our perspectives and our experiences, we can help people on that. So we'd love to have conversations with people. If you feel you're in that place, I'll just direct you to our website, which is besidepartners.com. And there should be a little book a call button. We just have a chat, see how things are going. That would be it. But other than that, thank you, gents, for joining us and for listening to us. If anybody's got any questions, if it's triggered anybody in any way and they've got something they think we missed or they totally disagree with, please feel free to send us some feedback. We love to hear it. We love the feedback we received so far. Any questions or stuff, then fire them in and we'll try and discuss them on a future episode. But we'll just leave you with, we are beside ourselves to have you with us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.